start with all my hard questions. I do.
All right, good evening. It is just a minute or two after 7 o'clock. We will call this regular meeting of the Richfield Board of Education to order. I will call everyone's attention to the top of our agenda where we can reflect on our mission to inspire and empower each individual to learn, grow, and excel. So this is just my bi-monthly reminder of what's important in life when it comes to the school board. I would ask any board member if they've had a chance to review the agenda, if we have any board member that would like to make a motion on the agenda.
Can we do a roll call?
Thank you.
I'd like to know who's here, Peter.
This is good for the record. So in attendance this evening, Paola Cole, Christine Malik, John Ashmead, Crystal Brocky, Tim Paulus. We are joined this evening by Assistant Superintendent Dr. Ledrian Roby, who is filling in for Mr. Yanowski, and I am Peter Tensing. Now, having called the attendance, we can look for a motion on the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Brocky and second by Paulus that we approve the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, the motion carries. We can go ahead and move on to item 3. I do not believe we have any delegations to receive this evening. So reports and information from school sources, you are on.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As the chair has spoken, I am sitting in for Superintendent Yanowski, and we're going to begin with congratulating our board members. As you know, it is National School Board Recognition Week, and so I want to say congratulations on behalf of our district staff and community members to our board members. We are very proud of you, and we appreciate all the work that you do on behalf of the children and the community of Richfield Public Schools. You give of your time and energy so that our school runs effectively and safely, and we do appreciate that. So thank you, and we do enjoy your work, and we hope that you enjoy the cookies that you have this evening. Also, other announcements. Recently, we had the grand opening of the Richfield Health Center, and Anthony, our Director of Technology, does have a few clips of that grand opening. We did receive press in the Sun Current, the Star Tribune, also on Fox 9, KARE 11, and KSTP. This is a new health center that is open in our high school. It has been open since January 11th, and we had a grand opening that took place on February 4th of this month. And he's going to just show a quick clip that took place on KARE 11, I think.
Trying to get through KARE 11's ad first.
Also new tonight, a new option for health care in Richfield to help children who may be underinsured or not insured at all. Richfield High School partnered with the Park Nicollet Health Foundation to create a free health resource center in the school. School leaders say this fills a serious need as many of their students live below the poverty line.
We're just really looking to accelerate achievement for our kids and knowing that they need proper nutrition, proper medical care, proper dental, psychological and mental health if necessary. Anything that we can do to bring those services into the school are going to have a large positive impact on our whole community.
The full-service clinic is just the 4th of its kind in the state.
There you go.
All right.
All right, so, yeah, we certainly had, it was really a really wonderful event, and it's probably worth, once again, reiterating our gratitude to Park Nicollet, as well as to the pro bono work of the architect and the builders who really did a fabulous job of putting together what's, I think, going to be an outstanding resource for our kids. And I think very excited to hear more from the health center as we can. We'll be getting reports back periodically about the volume of kids that they're able to serve, and really connecting kids who maybe need more ongoing healthcare, that's part of their mission as well, is to connect kids with a medical home, kids who are underserved. So I think it's going to be fabulous.
And the healthcare services are open to children birth through age 21 who are either students in the Richfield school community or live in Richfield district. So birth through age 21, so we are very excited about that. And we do have a communication of accommodation from our food service department. Our director of food service, Pam Hopp, and the entire nutrition food service department, they actually secured a grant from the Department of Agriculture. And the note from Pam was that we are very fortunate to receive this Department of Agriculture Farm to School grant for hot and cold serving food equipment for high school for 2 main lines, one main line in the RDLS food program. It is our goal to install a new equipment in July of 2016 for the implementation on the first day of school of next school year. The total grant amount is $49,566.84, with $42,895 of the grant from the Department of Agriculture and $6,671.84 of the grant from Blue Cross Blue Shield. We look forward to being able to serve even more hot and cold local products in our school lunch menus throughout the school year during the 2016-17 school year. So congratulations to Pam and the nutrition department. We are looking forward to that beginning in the 16-17 school year.
And I think one great thing that this underscores as well is the commitment that our nutrition services has had for a couple of years now to source the food locally and to support kind of local Minnesota agriculture. And I think it's been a very successful product, as well as I'm sure many of you are aware that they've really taken great strides forward in terms of promoting healthy choices for kids. Anything further, Leader?
That's it.
All right. So we can move on to the consent agenda. If there, first of all, let me ask if there are any questions for the administration on the consent agenda. If not, we can look for a motion.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
So we have a motion by Paulus and second by Ashmead that we approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, the motion carries. So Steve is going to be jealous when he learns on how effectively you lead a meeting, Leader. We're going to move on to the Student Information System recommendation from Mr. Paternos.
Good evening, Board and Assistant Superintendent Roby. Tonight I come forward with a formal recommendation for our new student information system. At the last board meeting, I presented the information on our review process as we reviewed Skyward, Infinite Campus, and Synergy. And from that evaluation team, we would bring forth a recommendation of Synergy as Richfield's new student information system.
So there is additional information in the board packet. I believe this is essentially the similar information to what you covered at our last meeting.
Correct.
Correct, and no additional items to highlight for us?
Nope.
All right then. Are there questions for Mr. Paternos regarding this particular recommendation? If not, we can look for a motion.
I'll move the item as recommended.
I second.
Very good. So we have a motion by Paulus and a second by Cole that we approve the adoption of Synergy as the new student information system. Is there any discussion on this item? Yeah, I think it was a pretty clear-cut decision as well. So all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are moving on then to policy review. At our last meeting, we took a look at policies 208, 209, and 210. Those policies are brought back now with some amendments reflecting our conversation last time. So I think we can just start looking at policy 208, which is regarding open meetings and closed meetings. Adrian, do you want to summarize the changes, or I can certainly do
Sure,
that?
I can,
Yeah.
walk you through the changes on policy 208 under Roman numeral 3, definition of meeting. It was a gathering of meeting or communication including, that was just highlighted in red of a quorum. It's just small changes. And then there was on the second page, under 2, there was a question around this one where it was qualifies, and I think it was Mr. Hollis, around, you were asking about qualifying if it was long, if you put it on the net.
Right.
On the web, right? And so this does qualify in written language. If you don't want to, if you don't agree, we can look at it a little further and rewrite it again.
Okay.
But the way that it's written, it's okay.
Okay. It is, okay. So just for clarity for the rest of the board, the concern I raised was at board training last week, I learned that the notice for meetings, one of the things the speaker commented on extensively was that statute often lags technology. And so the prior writing said it must be kept on file at its primary office or posted on a board outside its usual meeting place. And the person from MSBA actually felt quite strongly that means an actual board, you know, an old-fashioned bulletin board. And so, I don't know, if we are confident that it is within statute, then that's fine. If it's not, statute will trump it anyway. So,
Right, we just want to make, I mean, I
We-
think we
I
just
prefer
want
to
to be
have
sure that we're
policy within
compliant.
statute.
Yes,
You know.
correct.
So you're saying that they said that it should be on a board, like on a cork board?
right.
So
Well,
are we gonna leave it both or do just the online one or?
so we are establishing here where the schedule will be kept. That is we are declaring within this item 2 that our usual place for posting our schedule will be the district website.
Okay,
All right. The statute says a schedule of the regular meetings of a public body shall be kept on file at its primary offices, and you know, if we decide to have something different from what is stated in the schedule of regular meetings, then we have to give notice. So as long as, if we're declaring our regular place for posting, it is in fact online, then
okay.
perhaps that's okay.
Or would it be better to keep kept on file and just insert "and" with the new clause? And
Right.
commit to doing both of those things?
Would that mean we have to post it then?
Well, we'd have to keep it on file,
We'd have
which
to
I
keep it on
imagine
file,
you probably do.
Paper copy.
I think the way it is there.
The way it is fine.
More desirable.
Are you comfortable that this is accessible to everybody?
I think that, I would agree, I think that's the key point. I guess that my personal feeling, agreeing with you, Paolo, would be that we would keep the language a little bit broader to reflect that we would be keeping it on file at the district office. So the district office remains a physical location where an individual can be confident of being able to access this information. If electronic access or digital access is not available to that person.
Yes.
And we expand it to include the digital access, which, understanding that that's, from a practical perspective, that's probably the most important means of transparency. Is there any other feedback on that particular recommendation? To sort of make this rather than striking out, keeping on a file, to just sort of make that an addition?
So you're suggesting going to the language that Crystal has suggested? Kept on file and made available?
Yes.
It's fine with me. You, Dr. John?
Yeah, I can see where he's coming from.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as we don't hear that provokes any sort of undue administrative burden, which I don't think it would. Then there were...
It would be like
Go
that
ahead, Paula.
sheet that we have, like, on the internet with all the dates, like if we just put on a, like here somewhere maybe, that,
Or even just kept on file. It just has to be somewhere in a binder.
no, but like the file is about, like after the fact, I'm thinking about, you know what I mean? Like, I don't see why somebody would wanna come look at archives of dates. I'm thinking about keeping updated information about like when things are happening.
No, I think, it would be the list of calendar of all the dates of the school board
Okay.
meetings.
We all-
Coming up, not just the past.
Okay,
Would all
right,
be
Yeah.
included.
right.
Right. It's important for us to schedule them in advance, because once we've done that,
Yeah,
we
right.
no longer have to do public notice for each and every one, because they've
Exactly.
been made public in the official way.
Right. No, I'm thinking of, about not, like, I wouldn't be the one trying to give extra work to the office,
Right.
but just like that printout of what we're showing online, just so that it's visible to visitors maybe, or,
Right.
parents.
I
or-
imagine that's what will happen.
Right.
Leader, do we want to make Steve in charge of this specifically? We could put that language in?
The end is
Have it-
fine.
Have it in the primary offices and to make available
And,
online,
yeah.
that way you have.
Just what
Right,
Crystal
right.
said is fine, it's just the end, and then we can figure it out whichever way.
Yep.
It's just that computers, I know it's hard to believe, but they're not really as accessible for our parents as we think they are.
Understood. So that does get us to the items on page 3, which also I think are, we've lined out a number of items relative to a person filing request for notice of special meetings, sort of this entire, all these paragraphs that are really referring to notice of the meetings. So looking for feedback in the light of our conversation, looking for feedback on members' opinions about how important it is to keep that language in policy, or do we not need that language?
The language that was previously there, we've significantly redlined, is lifted directly from statute. It's statute 13D04, subdivision 2.
And it's,
And it's a copy paste from
Yeah.
what was here. So,
Yeah.
the notice shall also be mailed or otherwise delivered to each person who has filed a written request for notice of the meeting. So we can't get away from this, right? We have to do it. So we might as well keep the copy and paste of it that was there previously. As anachronistic as it sounds, and I get it, but it is the statute, right? We have to, the statute says we have to mail it to anyone who's filed a written request for it. And
Until that law changes.
until that law changes, we might as well leave it as policy. For fear that someone only checks our policy instead of statute, right?
True enough. And other opinions on what Mr. Paulus has just brought up? I think that makes perfect sense to me. I would stand by preferring to leave those items 3, 4, 5, and 6. I would personally stand by leaving those in. And moving forward then to the next page, again, this is similar changes, primarily, this is regarding the school board making good faith efforts to provide notice of emergency meetings, and relying upon the website as the medium for providing that notice.
It seems like maybe there was some miscommunication in how to put these together, because I think we said to add the website as an option to include it, but not to exclude I don't think our direction was necessarily to exclude everything else, but to include the website as another option, as a place for us to post it. Because these are right out of like the MSBA policies that they kind of put together for you to use, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And they all follow statute.
So having that feedback, I think we would potentially have a couple of options. I mean, there are some other specific details to take a look at. We potentially could, at this point, we're starting to pile up amendments in terms of recommendations to the language. I wonder if it makes sense for us to bring this back again at our next meeting for a final vote?
I believe so.
Can we,
I would agree with
is there
that.
anybody who would be interested in making a motion along those lines?
I'll move that we table this until we can incorporate the amendments.
I second that.
So, motion by Paula, second by Cole, that we table policy 208 and bring it back at our next meeting with feedback to the administration as noted. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. So we will revisit policy 208 at our next meeting. Policy 209.
This actually is broken into two different policies, sub-policies. One is a overall group ranking, and then the second part of the policy is an individual ranking of the board. So if you look at the first 2 or 3 pages, it's an overall group ranking of how the board does an evaluation of itself. And the last 2 pages are an individual ranking of how each board member would do an individual evaluation of itself. And it's very similar to how administrators are evaluated. Unsatisfactory, basic, proficient, and exemplary as the rubric being used.
So questions regarding the modification of the board self-evaluation policy and/or the actual 209.1, which is really the implementation document.
My question was whether we are approving the policy 209, which is just a very simple one-page policy, or whether we're approving the policy and the evaluation, meaning the evaluation couldn't be modified without it coming back to the board. And that's the piece that I'm just not sure about, whether the evaluation itself is board approved, or whether we agree with the policy and will continue to work with the evaluation.
In the agenda, it looks like the policy is what we're approving, and then the next part, which is the evaluation that Steve did some work on, is for review. Right.
And looking at line 19 of the policy, specifically this policy authorizes the superintendent to develop guidelines. Right, so that's just really saying just what Christine is saying, that what we're doing by approving this policy is we're essentially delegating the specifics of developing the evaluation tool to the superintendent. Yep, and I think certainly, so it's really easy to speak on Steve's behalf when he's not here. But I know that he's open to feedback and asking for feedback, in his communication, of course, with individual board members. I think he's made that clear. But as far as what we're voting on, it's just the policy, yeah. So along those lines, are there questions on the policy itself? If not, we can look for a motion.
I would move that we approve policy 209.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by Malik and second by Ashby that we approve the policy as written. Is there any discussion on this item? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. And I think relative to the, 209.1, which is the guidelines, I think if there is, this is new, right? And so this is not really necessarily an action item, but an item that we could provide feedback for the administration to consider. I will say, speaking on my own behalf, I felt that it was a nice document. Seemed to be a relatively easy tool to use, and one that is, I think, going to, I guess, one change in practice here from prior practice is the practice of evaluating the board as a whole, and also having individuals sort of self-evaluate themselves as individual members. I think that's a positive step in the right direction. So I guess, but that would be my feedback for Steve, is I guess I'm happy with what he's produced. If there's others that have other opinions.
I really liked the addition of goal setting, so I appreciated that. I think the one thing that I was feeling about the first several first several pages is wishing, again, and I think I brought this up last time, but a finer point on the strategic plan and our responsibility as a board in upholding and making decisions that are aligned to the strategic plan. And strategic planning itself is a section, but it's section F, whereas I feel like that's one of our biggest responsibilities as a board. And so both the emphasis that it gets and sort of where it falls in the document just felt a little bit off to me, because I see really aligning our work to the strategic plan as one of our core responsibilities as a board.
I would agree, and I guess I'd be interested to see, I don't want to drag this out, but I would be interested to see what other boards do for self-evaluation. Maybe they don't share that information. It would be interesting to hear.
Yep.
We're just taking notes.
So we can,
That's allowed.
right. Yeah, so and I'm going to scroll back up to the policy quick. I was going to see if that policy necessarily indicates a timeline. Because typically, as far as the time of year that self-evaluation is done, it's typically done over the summer when board self-evaluation has been done, although that's not necessarily something we would be pinned down to, although we do want to make sure we're doing it annually. So at any rate,
Steve suggested, I think, late spring.
Yeah, I think if we were to operationalize this along that timeline, this will give Steve some time to maybe tweak some things, and maybe if he can even share with us the practices of some of our colleagues. Great. So policy 210. As I scroll forward, is the conflict of interest policy. And I think this policy, yes, so we did make some changes in language on the portion of the policy that relates to the board hiring, employing, or dismissing teachers, and when there are family members or relatives of board members who are employed by the school district. So we did make some clarification or simplification, really, to the language there. I think that's the only change.
I'm not sure that's, we simplified, we combined two things. I think the first one where we item A, so 4A, I read it as if there are husband and wife, or brother and sister, or two brothers or sisters on the board, perhaps, right? I mean, otherwise, how could they constitute
Right.
a quorum?
Correct.
And so,
It's a family event, like,
yeah, it's great.
the whole family will run it.
I'm here to get away from my family.
No, they can see this. It's like-
And they're happy to have me here. Let me reread more carefully.
Yeah, don't
It might
try
be my
to-
fault.
You can come back from that one, sorry.
So really, and this might be another one of those pieces where there's statutory language on this.
Well, we're still required to have a unanimous vote of the full board. So I guess we don't need the preamble.
Yeah, either
So
way.
that's okay. Either way,
Yeah, either way,
whether we
yeah.
clarify that we're all brother, sister.
Right. So but I think you're correct, Tim, in that the first sentence refers to the makeup of the board,
Right.
and that would be relative to any employment decision.
Right, we still
If
cover
we
it.
happen to have a board that is composed of, where 4 members of the board are related by the first degree, basically, where they're within a nuclear family, that only a unanimous decision of the school board would, that would require, the way I'm reading that language is that would require unanimous votes of the school board for any employment, entering into employment with any individual, right?
Yeah, I guess the more,
Yeah.
as I read through it more carefully, you said that, I think I see it. We're still requiring the unanimous vote of the full board, so I take it all back.
Yeah.
But not that I love my family deeply. I enjoy their company.
Sorry, I see a stop at the mall coming.
Right. Well, if there's any, given this conversation about this particular item, if there's any member who's willing to make a motion or make a suggestion, I think we can entertain that.
I'll move board policy 210 as presented.
I'll second.
All right, so a motion by Paulus and second by Malik that we approve the policy as presented. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. The policy is approved. So we can move on to new business. Our first item is Board Policy 713, and this is new, some new language.
And this is proposed by the business department. This is a first presentation by Bernice Hubnick, and so this is for review. So this is first time through.
Good evening, board members. Dr. Roby. I'm here to present Policy 713, Post-Issuance Debt Compliance Policy. The background is we met with our municipal advisor, and it was suggested that we have a post-issuance debt compliance policy in place. And really, the goal is state and local governments receive direct and indirect tax benefits under the tax-exempt bond code. In order to stay within those parameters, we are required to meet general post-issuance compliance, proper and timely use of obligation proceeds and obligation finances, arbitrage, yield, restrictions and rebates, timely filings, and other general requirements. Basically, what they're saying is to receive these benefits, issuers must ensure that requirements are met generally for as long as the bonds remain outstanding. These requirements include, but are not limited to, information filing and other requirements related to issuance, the proper and timely use of bond finance property, and limitations on how bond proceeds may be invested. The IRS publication 4079 gives suggestions on how tax exempt entities should deal with those under these compliance issues. And again, this is coming to you based on information provided by our financial advisor, and also in conjunction with, this was also addressed during our Standard & Poor's rating call.
So this is some fairly dense language.
That's it.
Yeah. This is our first reading. Are there questions for Ms. Humnick on the language here? Go ahead, Christine.
So this is from like an MSBA policy formatted.
Actually, Mr. Holte can validate that MSBA didn't have the policy in place. So what others, our municipal advisor, has provided us with the format and the frame for the policy. And again, the IRS publication 4079 encourages to have practical steps in place to eliminate those out of compliance issues.
And again, I suspect that this is a similar piece to where what we were voting on, well, or not necessarily voting on tonight, but what we were specifically asked to vote on is the policy. And then there is a second document, 713.1, which is the procedural document. That's more of a guideline document, which we're not, again, that we delegate the specifics of the guideline to the administration, but not something that we're specifically voting on. I mean, my general take is that I guess I did have one question. This is regarding the private activity bonds. Is that a practice that we've engaged in the past as far as acting as a, because what I'm sort of envisioning is that in this private activity bonds scenario, or these conduit bonds, that we would be acting as a bonding agency on behalf of another 501c3? Am I getting that correct, or no?
No, we have not processed situations generally in the past like that. We're really focused on tax-exempt general obligation bonds.
Yeah.
And there has been instances in the past where, because some people have taken the funding from the bond sales and invested them. And the IRS has said, no, these are being sold as tax-exempt bonds, and that was not the purpose or the intent. And so it's put some corralling on how the bonds are used.
Got it.
Well, Peter, your question about the private, I mean, it is theoretically possible, right, that we partner up with an external 501c3, since we have access to the bond market, we issue bonds and more or less transfer the funds to a qualifying 501c3 so that they can do something with it that we will have mutually shared benefit from.
Right. And obviously, the decision to enter into any bond, to issue any bond like that would be at the discretion of the board at that time. And so I'm assuming that this particular piece of the policy was sort of brought forward by Ellers as a standard documentation, sort of boilerplate documentation.
Yes, that's correct.
Obviously, doesn't compel us to do it. Any other questions or suggestions around this particular policy? Yeah, Crystal.
And my question was really similar to the one that Christine already asked, because I'm getting so used to seeing the MSBA model policy or statute or code at the bottom of policies as a reference. And my question is just whether there is anything that should be included in these policies at the bottom as a reference. So that's for you all to look into.
Yeah, potentially we can.
We could possibly even indicate the publication 4079.
Yeah,
from the
exactly.
IRS.
Yeah. So with that feedback, yeah, Tim, were you thinking?
I was actually not thinking.
You were actually not thinking, great. So with that feedback for the administration, we can look forward to our second read of this policy at the next meeting. And it doesn't sound like there's necessarily any specific language changes, but we'll just bring it back for a second read with a little bit more understanding. Thank you. So moving on to donations, Dr. Roby.
We have several donations from Spartan Food Shelf. We had an anonymous donation of $9.60. And we had a donation of $47.55 to Richfield High School General Operations. And also we received a donation from Wells Fargo, an employee match of $404.61. That's it.
So very generous donations. It's actually the Spartan Food Shelf has, I think, really been doing well the last couple of months, and that's such a great service that is provided at the high school. Look for a motion that we accept these donations with gratitude.
I move we accept the donations.
I second.
So motion by Ashmead, second by Cole, that we accept the donations with gratitude. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. So we will move on to advanced planning. The first item is a legislative update. I do not have anything on this front. I don't know, Dr. Roby, if there's anything that you have. My understanding has been that most of the conversation at the Capitol has been around transportation and trying to haggle that out before the session actually starts.
And I don't have any additional.
Okay. I will say that now this will actually come after I believe will come after our first meeting in March, but the AMSD legislative preview is going to be that first Friday in March, and so we'll presumably have some feedback after that. Item B, information and questions from the board. Can open the floor to anyone who has anything to share. I will share that I did have an opportunity to attend the Bloomington Youth Advisory Council meeting, and it was really actually, I think, it was a good opportunity to not only share what we've done with our student representatives here in Richfield. Also, there was a board member from Hopkins, Betsy Anderson from Hopkins was there and shared what Hopkins has been doing with student representatives on the board. And Bloomington, I mean, this is their practice with engaging students in the governance of the organization. They have a youth advisory council, so a little bit larger group of students who meet several times per year to actually be tasked with providing more specific advice to the board around issues that might be impacting the students directly. So, I mean, that would be something that potentially we could think about, or we could think about, are there ways that we can look at our program with our student representatives and make this a valuable experience. I actually would love to bring back so Ludrian, I don't know if the Principal Daniels is, if we really have a person in the administration who kind of is working as a mentor for these guys or trying to make sure that it's a good experience for them, or sort of having that responsibility.
Not formally, but we can make sure that that's a more formal relationship.
Yeah.
For our student
Right.
investors.
So for whomever that might happen to be. And we might even think about putting an evaluation process in for them, to be giving feedback on how this experience has worked for them and how it could be most valuable. Yes, I think it obviously has potential to be a great experience, but we want to make sure that we're, I think, purposeful and attentive to that. Other feedback?
Were any of our students able to join here?
None of our students were able to join. They're busy people.
Yes.
Yes, even the lure of Domino's Pizza didn't quite make it.
It's
Yeah.
been really busy.
All right, so future meeting dates. Our first meeting in March is Monday, the 7th. That will be here in the district boardroom at 7 o'clock. We have our second meeting in March on the 21st, also here in the boardroom. That meeting will be hosted by the high school. And if I am recalling correctly, I think I'm not recalling correctly, when were we doing that study session with the city council?
We're still looking for a date.
Still working on a
They're
date for that.
available on the 7th, so they're looking for a date.
Okay, so still working on a date for that, so that may come later in March or may come in April. The superintendent has proposed that he will be bringing forward an update for us on the 7-period day at Richfield High School. And we'll do some review around that particular item at the meeting in March 7th. So certainly, I'm suspecting that there's probably public interest on this particular 7-period day item because it could have a substantial impact on the schedule for students at the high school. So public participation is certainly invited. We will be reviewing as well items with the budget. We know that we're anticipating, based upon the enrollment projection, that we're anticipating a dip in enrollment for the upcoming school year. And so superintendent will be sharing with us his plans on right-sizing the budget and the strategy for making any reductions that might be required. The items to really be thinking about in terms of the 7-period day, and superintendent, of course, will share with us all these details, but obviously there would be a significant impact on start times across the district, as we'd have to look at coordinating transportation. And so other schools besides the high school would likely be impacted. There would be an impact on the opportunity for our dual language immersion program, as well as the impact on graduation requirements. And I know that certainly as we've talked this over at our last, when we got the presentation from Principal Daniels, I think it's important for us to recognize that this is not a path where there's two choices. As we think about how we have got the schedule structured at the high school and how we work to expand opportunity for students at the high school, there may be incremental things that we could do prior to implementing the full 7-period day. And so this may be, an incremental process. But the superintendent, I think, will bring us up to speed on his thinking there. And so certainly if board members have specific input that they want to share, then, communicating with Steve and with his team. Are there other agenda items that board members would like to bring forward?
If I could, I didn't read the donations correctly. If I could do that again, I apologize. This is my first time doing this, and I want to do it the right way. So please bear with me. The $90 donation was actually a GoFundMe from VK. It was $90.60 for the Spartan food shelf. And then there was a $47.55 donation from the K Foundation for Richfield High School. And then also the $455 donation came from 4 individuals from the Employee Match Foundation, $130 from Tanya Smiley, $70 from Antonia Stroh, $70 from Michelle Peterson, and $134.61 from Patrick Stone. So I apologize that I did not acknowledge each of those people appropriately.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Can I ask a question about a suggested agenda
Yes.
item? I know at the last meeting, Tim brought up an update on the dual language program and planning in terms of the high school, and I don't know if that will be part of the 7-day, or...
I believe it will be.
7-period day.
I believe
just
it
want to
will
make
be.
sure that we explicitly
Oh,
call
that's
out that will be
good clarification.
part of the discussion of the 7-period days, planning for our dual language students moving to high school.
Yes.
For them.
Yes, and Dr. Roby, would we be able to share anything about the sort of dual credit class?
The dual language. We actually met with our families last week, and we're meeting again with our dual language families in another week or so with our Spanish-speaking families. They've asked for an additional meeting to make sure that they receive an additional support. And so that is actually there's two different issues where we want to make sure that we provide that support, and we'll be able to give that update as well as to what's going on with the DLI program as our 8th graders matriculate into the high school. So yes, we'll have an update.
All right, well, I think that'll keep us plenty busy at that first meeting in March. Hearing no further agenda items, we can look for a motion on adjournment.
So moved.
We adjourn.
So motion by Ashmead, second by Paulus. All in favor that we adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, we are adjourned.